Hello everyone, my name is Luke, and welcome to the next tutorial for the Promethean Directive. Today I'll be covering the Civilian tab. To get you started, there's a lot of information here, so let's split it into four categories. You've got basically your starting and debug information tab. You've got your resources tab. You've got cities, and then you've got interacting with other nations through spies and trading. To start with the input area, you've got your nation name, color, and font. The first two I've already taken care of for you, but if you want a custom font, then you just put it in there, like Times New Roman, Arial, Algerian, Orbitron, whatever it is, you put it in there, and it will show up on the map to be used for labeling your cities and your fleets. The land area here, I will always take care of for you. I'll keep it updated. And then this reflects on your land value right here, which is usually about 100 to 200 per pixel, depending on how valuable I judge your land to be. More expensive if you're an island, less if you're on the continent. And then you have to select what kind of start you want to have. Low tech is for people on the left third of the map. Mid tech is for those in about the middle half, and high tech is for those on the right third. Just to get a technology gradient, so we don't have World War II battleships fighting thruster craft that look like they're from the sci-fi. And there's a bit of overlap in there, so you get some flexibility if you're between the quarters and thirds. But in general, just to keep things balanced and consistent is how these are set up. They affect how much materials you get and how much technology you get to start. So let's go ahead and select mid-tech for this, just as our example. And then that will fill in the free materials you have to work with, your tech points and so on. Until you do that, you'll end up in the negative, whatever you do. Then for the next section is cities. You have to input your city's name. We'll go with Tallinn, because that's one from the Avum Empire. The type, it's just a yard, so it can build ships, and then it can do production research. Let's give it 10 and 5 maybe. And then there's these three categories that are a little bit confusing, so I'll explain those here. Dock capacity is how much fleet your city can hold and give the discounted upkeep. So if we go to the military tab, when you're at base, upkeep is only 1%, whereas it's 2% if you are idle and outside of base. Then there's also build capacity, which is the total amount of materials that can be built at this port, at this yard in each turn. And this is in 1,000 materials, just like all the other ones. This means that if you have 500 here, then you can add 500,000 resources to whatever ships you are building at this place. Then for the build per craft, let's say we make it 200, if you want to build a 500,000 ship, you've got the capacity for it, but it's only one ship, and you can only add 200 per ship each turn. So it would take you 3 turns with 200 build per craft to get a 500,000 craft done. But you could get 5 100,000 destroyers built in a single turn because of the build capacity. Hopefully that makes sense. And then your dock capacity is also your maximum ship size limit. So if this is 1,000,000 or 1,000, then you can't build a ship more expensive than 1,000,000 at this port unless you upgrade this. So it does a dual purpose of providing a maximum ship size and also letting you send ships to dock there to get reduced upkeep. Production cost can be lowered through technology. Research cost is always the same. And these are just the cost per. Everything gets summed up, and then you got your total under here. You'll normally see that your production and research are going to be the most expensive parts, just because these are way more expensive per item. And then to find your city coordinates, what you need to do is open up the Discord, go to Maps, and then click on the map. If you just copy it or save it, you're going to get a lower resolution file, so you need to first click Open in Browser. And then you've got the full resolution map as a PNG, as you can see up here. Then you can save it as whatever you want. And then if I swap over to Paint, you can use Paint or another similar app. You just need to make sure that at the bottom left here, it displays where your cursor is at. So we can see that if I select somewhere in the Avum Empire, about where I want Tallinn to be, we can see that it is about 2070 and 2230 are the coordinates. So if I swap back to this, I'm going to forget it by the time I get over there, but you can do split screen for yourself. I think it was 2270 and 2330. That's definitely wrong, but you can do a better job than that. Generally, I like it if you put your capital at the top and then your yards, then bases and cities. If you're wondering what the difference is, capitals and yards can build everything. If you have a base, you can have dock capacity, but you're not allowed to build anything at just a regular base. So that'll turn red on you. So you can't mess this up without it alerting you. I try to put these debugs in the spreadsheet as much as I can, so don't worry too much about that. And then cities, you can't have dock capacity, only production and research. And these affect how much each city costs. So a city costs 10, 20, port costs 25, and a yard costs 50, and then 100 for a capital. And a yard is anywhere that makes craft. It's not just a shipyard. It can be a factory that produces planes, for instance, or tanks, whatever. So once you've filled out all of these, everything will get summed up here. You'll see your total cost of cities, which is the colors match, just as a helpful hint. Same with all the greens. They're not always the same value, but they represent all of your material gain. So gain from import and stuff, and so on. If you want more cities, you can talk to me to make sure that you can do it correctly. But if not, you can just copy this, move it down, accept the heads up, copy this, and it should be fine. You'll be able to build in more like that. There's no limit for the number of cities, but they do cost money, so it's up to you to decide. And I generally encourage you to have, if you're wondering how to get started, probably a capital, 2 or maybe 3 yards, a couple of extra bases or ports, and then the rest can be cities, just to give you a fair balance and stuff that's spread out. Because if you have everything in a single mega capital, then you might be very vulnerable if someone decides to attack your mega capital. Moving on to the next section is resources. So on the map, there's a bunch of resource icons. When they are within your territory, you can harvest them. So if you've got, let's say, a wood, a gas, and an aluminum inside of your land, then you can choose to make these a 1 and harvest them. If you do so, you'll see that you're adding mine value and you're adding resource income. So each time you harvest a resource, you actually get money back from it with a 10 turn return on investment. So if you do it at the very beginning, then you'll get your money back by the end. But I mean, you're using the mine anyway, so you don't need the return on investment just from this. So what this will do is you'll get 1 aluminum and so on. You should only use whole numbers here, just because that's how it works. And then once you've got aluminum accessible, you can either sell it to another country, or you can use it to give yourself a jet, or give yourself non-wooden planes, which is mentioned on the tech tab. You can see here that aluminum will unlock non-wooden aircraft. And it's also, I think, you can use it to get incendiary. Yeah, right here. If you only use, like if less than half of your fleet is composed of non-wooden aircraft, you can actually export up to half of this. So you can export in whole or half numbers, which means that then if someone is buying this half, then they can only use it for, again, less than half of their fleet. Just as a way of putting in more flexibility, because oftentimes, yeah, it's kind of a waste to have aluminum if your Air Force is only a tiny fraction of the material cost of your nation. So keep that in mind as an option. Otherwise, you can just export the whole thing if you don't want it. Some of these, like gas, actually provide power. So gas provides 5 power. You get it noted here. And then if you've got a reactor, which is for if you have nuclear reactor technology and your ship costs more than 500,000, then you get an extra bonus. And if you have uranium. A very complicated thing, but it's useful in the end game if you're like trying to do energy weapons. And then let's say this isn't enough for you. Let's say you want to have double the power from resources. You can actually upgrade this. So you put a 1 there and get rid of the original 1. It will cost you 3 times as much and generate twice the income, but it will also give you twice the resources available, which in this case is power. And you can also do that for let's say aluminum, if you want to export it. So now you can use it for yourself and you can use it for yourself and you can export 1 of them to someone else. If you're importing it, you just put a +1 here and it will get added to your available. You won't get any resources from it. Whoever harvests it gets the material return, but you will get the resource itself. I try to keep it as material is equivalent to from the depths in-game materials times 1,000, whereas resources is these 11 things right here. Let's go ahead and clear these out, and then these are your costs of everything too. Oh, and the last thing to cover here is a basic harvest. So if you want one of the benefits of chromium, which in this case is jet aircraft, but you don't need the other ones like thrustercraft, then you can get a basic harvest, which will show up as a 0.1 here, which will unlock one of the techs for your whole fleet, but not any of the others. So if we go over to the military or the tech tab, you can see that chromium unlocks fast ships, jet aircraft, and nuclear subs. If we don't want nuclear subs or fast ships, then we can unlock it as a basic and then use it just for jet aircraft, and you're totally fine. It's half the cost, but again, it has that restriction, and you can't export anything but the whole of a partial harvest. So you can export the 0.1, but you can't split it in half again. Moving on to the final segment is the spies and import section, or like material trade. So here you've got your intel and counter intel, which is fed from elsewhere. So none of these you need to ever change. These are all taken care of for you. And then all of the empire names will automatically infill here. We can see you've only got 5 right now, but there's obviously like 24 of you. And then whenever you want to put a spy in a country, put the number there. Bada bing, bada boom. It will cost you 5 per turn in maintenance, and then 20,000 to hire. So if we want to put 1 in the Avum Empire, and then let's say 2 in the Duchy, we have to go over to our Turns tab for adjustments, and then put minus 60. And then as a note, we'll add one spy in Avum Empire, 2 spies in Duchy. If you ignore my spelling errors there. And that will make sure that gets accounted for. So the adjustments are where you do manual changes to your finances that need accounted for, like hiring spies. And then next up, you've got material trade, where if, let's say, let's mock up a resource trade here. So let's say that we are buying 1 wood from the Light of the Sanctified. We'll add a note here, which is importing 1 wood for the next 5 turns. Let's say it ends on turn 5. You can keep track of this however you want. These are not input anywhere. This is just for your personal bookkeeping. So you get 1 wood, so you add a positive trade of 1 wood there. And then if you're paying them money, let's say that you're paying 10 materials per turn, you put a 10 there, all of the calculations are done for you. This is taken care of automatically. And then let's say you're also wanting to like buy a vehicle from the Caladrian Directive. You will only put the amount here that is like the surcharge for it, so like the fee. The actual material cost of the vehicle will be accounted for when you add that to your military spreadsheet. So let's say we buy a 50,000 cost ship from the Caladrians, and they charge us 60,000 for it. You're paying them 10 for the 50k ship, and then when you add it to your military tab, you just put the cost in here. And that will take care of that. And because it's a one-time cost, you need to make sure that you remove this once the turn has been processed and submitted. Otherwise, it'll be charged to you again. I'll try to look out for those when I can, but I can't make any promises. There are, again, 24 of you, or 25. And then if you put a spy in your own country, if you're the Avum Empire and you put a spy in the Avum Empire, it will add to your counterintelligence. So a spy in another country gives you 5 intelligence. A spy in your own country gives you 2 counterintelligence. So if someone is really targeting you, you're not going to be able to keep up, but you can keep away the casual observer just by investing a little bit in your own counterintelligence spies. That should be all for the civilian tab. Thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know this can be confusing at times, but ultimately know that the only place you need to fill in information are here, 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 right here, and then all of these. Everything else is just information for you. All of the grayed out or colored tabs are just information, so hopefully it doesn't get too overwhelming. I try to make it intuitive where I can. Alrighty, thank you very much and have a good one.